Okay, we're here at Grand Crow Farm again with Jeremiah Durbin, who is the Soil Health Specialist for the Tennessee Association of Conservation Districts. So Jeremiah, how long have you been in your position, and kind of what's your background?
So the first part of that question, I've officially been in 1 year, rolling up on the anniversary of that with TACD. I'm continuing forward with that, but my experience, I'm an independent crop consultant. I work in 5 states, working on 6 states, and I work with clients anywhere from conventional to regenerative, from small grain to pastures, with livestock to anything vegetable or hemp or anything of that nature. So kind of well-rounded in these different crops that we deal with in different soils. With no further ado, we'll go ahead and get going here. Today we're going to do a rainfall simulation. And of course, this is not everybody's soil, but it gives you a great idea of where we're at. And that's from the conventional of tillage to all the areas that wouldn't take in water, such as driveways, roofs, sidewalks, things that can't take rain and store it and cycle it, to minimum tillage, with no cover crops, with living roots, and then also no tillage with living roots, and the buildup of biomass and how important that is and how we can grow our organic matter. And then as close to the fence posts or the woods as we're trying to mimic nature as we possibly can. So with no further ado, I'm going to turn this thing on. I've got a rain gauge to kind of simulate rain. I know here on the farm they've had a lot of rain this year, so this is going to be a great tool. As we talk about the excess of rain, I also want to talk about the drought and how healthy soils can help you get through those drought times. So I'll go ahead and turn this on and we'll see what happens.
So tell us a little bit about the setup here while it's raining on it. You have 2 rows of jugs.
Yeah, so these inner jugs are what's infiltrating, and this is what is running off. This is what's going down our roads, down our creeks and our streams, our lakes. And I want you to think about the color that you see and where it's going. As this gets running, I put your gauge there so we'll see how much rain we get. But you know, with the heavy rains they've had here, this is a true sign of where are my nutrients going? What's my ability to infiltrate water, to infiltrate oxygen, to cycle that, make nutrient availability? You know, it's a huge deal with roots. You know, they grow down, and if it doesn't have the opportunity to get down to those roots and to get with that biology, then it's not available for that plant to take in. And as well, if it's running off, all the hard-earned money that you've taken and put in fertility, you're sending it down the road. So you're not allowing your biology to take control and cycle as it should, the way it was intended to.
So I think we're also seeing a difference in infiltration here.
Absolutely. So as you can see on our tilled, you know, this is where we come in with our tiller, but we got to make it pretty. I think the biggest problem we have is we have an iceberg effect, and that is we focus on the top 10%, but we don't worry about the 90% below and what's going on there. And so we come in, we till our garden. Now, I'm not saying there might be some noxious weeds and things initially starting to do a hard reset, but this is what you're going to do. You're going to lose all the built-up soil aggregates that you're building over here. And again, you know, minimum disturbance, but it does have residue, so you've left some of the residue from your living plants of previous. Here, as you can see, the water is actually infiltrating. See the color difference? It's a lot lighter. Granted, there's going to be some that flows through because there's not living roots here at this point to continue on. But where there is living roots, the runoff's not there. There is infiltration, but because of the soil aggregates and the biology, the carbon and the nitrogen working together, fixating themselves through grasses and lagoon cover crops, we're able to take those hard rains and not send our soil and send all our nutrients downstream. We're at about 1.5 inches here, and I'll shut this off. But I really want to take a minute just to look at that. You know, they say a picture is worth 1,000 words. And we just had 1.5 inches rain. Now, that was a pretty hard rain to come that quick. But by looking at just look at our inside for infiltration. Our tilled, where there's going to be hard pans, no soil aggregates, the ability for it to store water, it's not there to take it in and to properly leach it out. Again, minimum disturbance, but no living roots. It's going to infiltrate, but again, it's pretty dirty. Dark colored, we're losing nutrients, we're losing soil. This was our simulation of sidewalks and driveways. And of course, we weren't able to capture any of that energy from rain, and it just went right down the road there. Where we had cover crops, continual living cover crops, and biomass, we're building up our organic matter. A few things. One, it's going to have a little bit darker color, but it's going to be a lot cleaner because the rain's able to hit the biomass and absorb rather than splattering. As you guys can see, this is a splattered mess. You might be able to look in these chutes and really get an idea of how that it hits and it bounces off. Look at the back of this board. We had 1.5 inch rain and there's mud everywhere. There's soil everywhere. But yet when we go over here where there's living roots and biomass, we don't have that. See how clean it is? And looking at the runoff, there's very little. So for food for thought, this right here should really encourage us to have living roots, to have cover crops, to have minimum disturbance. We can dig into this really quick, and it's important to look at your soil. Take a shovel. It's some of the senses you have, your eyes, to be able to see, to be able to feel it with your hands, and to be able to smell it. And if you guys could smell through that video, this has got a very earthy smell. It's got great soil aggregates. It may be hard to see right now.
And what is an aggregate?
So a soil aggregate is a nugget of nutrients that's been stored, and that's through grasses pumping carbon into the soil and the biology and the legumes for the nitrogen fixation. And so those soil aggregates, when we come into a drought period, will be your best friend. We'll go with the other extreme just to kind of speed up the time here, but if we were to really get in here, start digging, yeah, we got a little bit of infiltration, but you don't see the soil structure. You don't see the soil nuggets. So if we were to go from a complete 1.5 inch rain to 100 degrees and dry up, how's a plant going to get any nutrients? How's biology going to be fed? Granted, right now it's sopping wet, but you don't have that. So, those are quick indicators that you guys can do with your own shovels. Look at earthworm castings. Look for insects. When you start seeing insects, that's a great thing. That means the biology's there. So if there's anything that I can really hone in on is continual living roots. It doesn't have to be a lot at first. Learn how to manage it, figure out what works with your practices. But if you want to be able to outgrow the rest of them and be able to still be in business and be a better land steward, continual living roots and biomass is what's needed.
So I know a lot of big farmers use this, and a lot of our audience today is smaller vegetable producers, which is a little bit harder, as far as that. But most people, a cover crop is your first start.
Sure.
Keep the soil covered in the winter, because what does that do for you by having it covered?
So by having it covered, soil temperature for one. So whether it's in the cold times when the ground freezes, you're keeping that soil covered. You're keeping the heat and the moisture in that soil. In the drought situations, it's the same thing. I think a few more things with these cover crops. We say no tillage, and you're gonna be like, well, how do I loosen my soil? Living roots. The ability for plants to get down, and they have feeder roots, and you got feather roots, and as they go out, you're going to find hard pans as you dig and as you start, but that's your baseline. As you continue to have living roots, you're going to start to see that soil opens up, the porosity of it opens up, the structure and the aggregates will come. So, in the beginning, don't give up, don't quit. It's to your advantage actually being in smaller production, because you can quickly change things that may be a large dramatic thing for like a row cropper, because they can't get over every inch of their acres at once. You guys can go out and get in your gardens a lot faster. So if you see something become an issue, you can go out and maintain that and fix that a lot faster. But I really recommend, and I heard him saying earlier, the thing is a hard reset, and I'm not saying don't till, minimum tillage if you have to, but I also understand you have to get established. Weed pressure is a huge thing. So if we need to do minimum tillage to get that suppression down, whether that's maybe a burn off or laying a piece of plastic over it to fry it, whatever it might be, and then get in there and plant roots. You know, the way to fix dirt is through plants to make soil. So
what about hard pan? Why don't you describe that if people don't know what that means?
So a hard pan, for instance, well, here I'll draw you a hard pan. So over time, of course, as you use tillage tools, you drag that tool, and at the tip of that tool, whether it's a tiller, whether it's a hoe, whether it's a rake, you make a hard pan. Well, a hard pan, if I just stick my finger right in this soft, it'll go in. Well, if I was to stick it where I just drug my tool, that's a hard pan. That's where roots will go down and go sideways, because it cannot get through that hard pan initially. But through cover crops, because of those roots, as those roots grow, they're going to expand. And then when they die, where you terminate them or whatever the procedure might be on that, that is food for the biology. And as they decay, now we're releasing nutrients. We've brought up nutrients from the bottom back to the surface to allow it to be in our top 2 inches of where most of your organic matter is in the beginning as you start to grow. But it also gives more pore space for water infiltration and for oxygen to follow. Because biology is the same as us. I mean, they need oxygen and water to survive.
So, and let's talk about cover crops. Are there different cover crops depending on what time of year it is? And I believe you recommend a mixture of cover crops.
Yeah,
why?
I do. And so there's multiple ways you can go about this, but you have warm season and cool season. As many of you drive around and see yards, as a quick example, you'll see in the spring, you'll see some really pretty green, fescue looking cool season grasses. But then as we get into June, July, August, those start to die out. And if you don't have your warm season grasses, you don't have a pretty lawn. Same thing goes with our cover crops. There's different times of the year that they can really thrive. So anytime we can get that sunlight, capture that sunlight through a living root, we want to get it in the ground, so we need more living plants. There's 2 main top style, of course, is grasses, which is our carbon, and our legumes, which bring in our nitrogen, because they have the nodules. There's ways you can go about it. You could pull a soil test and look at a Haney respiration, look at your carbon nitrogen ratio to speed that up with what you're trying to grow and what will mix. When you're picking a cover crop, it's important to not have something that you can't terminate when you want to terminate. Look at what can I manage, how can I terminate this, or how can I allow this to grow and mow it to maintain it and it not get in the way of my other plants. Because sunlight competition becomes a great thing.
What is, if people don't know how to do a mixture, where can they go to get help?
So you can go to your NRCS or your state offices. There's online, you can get on Smart Mix. At the end of the day, it all comes down to profitability. And I heard them talking earlier. If you can have all the pretty tools you want in the shed, but if you're not profitable, what good is it? So we got to use what we have. So look at the cost of your seeds around you, and if you start to look, there's tons of pre-made mixes. But again, every site is a different context. Everybody's different as far as human beings and nutrients. Soil is the same way. So if you can find what's close to you and how can I get something established that fits in my budget and start from there. A little bit is a lot. A lot of people want to just jump in there and just put tons. Well, they can't manage it, or all of a sudden they're like, man, where's all my nutrients? Your cover crops are going to take in some nutrients. But if you go at a pace that doesn't overwhelm you, you won't have to feed as much nutrients. And then as that process starts to build, that carbon nitrogen ratio and the biology working together, it will speed it up and you'll be able to apply more of what crop you're trying to relay with. I think another thing important with the cover crops is, we all run into insect issues, we all run into funguses, we all, run into weeds that are overtaking us. And with that continual rotation of crops and growing and difference, we're going to bring in more biologies that's going to help fight with these different funguses, fight with the different insects, the predator prey. So those are all good things. Everybody's like, well, which one do I use? Well, start small, see what works for you. Again, climate, your area. If you're next to woods or you're out in the middle of a bare yard, there's so many different insects you're going to get and different issues you're going to deal with depending on where you're at.
So in Tennessee, what are your options for getting a soil test?
There's the University of Tennessee. There's other labs you can send to. to run a Haney test, if you're wanting to do like a carbon nitrogen test, you're gonna have to kind of go out of state on that one. I have not found one in state. Soil Regen's a good lab. Brookside Laboratories, Ward. Those are just the three off the top of my head. That as important as it is, your carbon nitrogen ratio, that's the biology side, but physics is huge too. You know, your calcium, magnesium, getting your pH in line, making sure your base saturations are right, and then looking at your nutrients. You know, what am I trying to grow? What plants, like what pH I'm at? You know, you might want to be here with a certain plant, but we may have to start here to start to increase that and to fix the base saturation of the chemistry physics, to get the biology working, to get where you want to be. So.
And why is pH important?
Well, because there's two sides to pH. There's acidity and alkalinity. And if you're too acidic, it's just like us. It's heartburn. It's gonna dissolve and kill, and it's gonna be gone. And then there's the other side of that where things are neutral and they're kind of lazy, and a lot of things are tied up and unavailable. Again, you can search a pH chart. It's probably something I would put in my beginner's handbook. It's understanding pH and what nutrients are available at what pHs, and you know what heavy metals become available. You know, when you're looking at a chemistry physics test, you're looking at your buffer pH and your soil saturated pH, seeing how much it pulls. You might, you know, that's a lot of times when you need to look at your liming to see how the lime's properly been done, or what we might need to fertigate some, you know, liquid calcium or liquid magnesium, whatever the case may be, to keep us in that pH range. Because some plants, you get too much heavy metals, it's going to show in the plant.
So part of this to give food for the organisms on the ground is to raise your organic matter that
Yes.
you have. And I believe, does the UT test now include that?
I believe so. Don't hold me to that. I'll get myself in trouble. But yes, I mean, the organic matter is in there. I'm 100% sure you can get it. It's a little bit extra,
Right.
from just your standard pH and maybe a base saturation of NPK. We can get into that in another advanced topic,
Yeah.
and I'd happily do that for you. But you know, those are important things because we all want to get better. So we're going to do that through Living Roots.
So what should somebody, let's say a gardener that is going to have pretty good turnover, but no different than a row crop person, what do you see as the organic matter reading on soils that have been continuous tilled as composed to a no-till? Is there a difference?
So in my experience, you're going to be around a 2 unless you're out in Iowa or out west where the exchange is 30. Then maybe you have a higher organic matter. But you got to remember, over 60% of organic matter is carbon, okay? And there's organic forms of carbon, and then there's inorganic forms. Now, with our Living Roots and our biomass, you know, we can go up. We can go 6, 7, 14. I mean, I've seen them grow. It all depends on management and, you know, weather, climate. A lot of people get hung up on organic matter, and it's very important because I want to build the biomass. But at the end of the day, nutrient cycling to me is more important, and water infiltration and soil aggregates, than getting caught up just on organic matter.
Okay.
Because organic matter is the house that the microbes live in. It's the food. You know, it's what gives them energy to produce and go out to work to eat the other insects and the other biology, to break down those roots, to give us available nutrients. So again, it's a great baseline, and these soils that have been destroyed and tore up, you're going to have very little organic matter. Mm-hmm. As you begin to build it, as you get the covers in there, you will bring the biology. They're going to come. And the diversity, because nobody wants to eat McDonald's every day. Nobody wants to eat Wendy's every day, monocropping. When you start to diversify, have multiple mixes and rotation of crops, I mean, you're bringing it in, and they'll be there.
So what does that do for your profitability? I mean, does it reduce the nutrients you have to apply, or? Absolutely.
So let's just start on the low side. Everybody knows we got to put out NPK, or actually before that, you know, lime, whether it's high calcium or high magnesium. Then you got NPK, then maybe some minor nutrients to go with it, and then you have to water it. Possibly getting started, you know, you're going to have to kind of spoon feed this thing. It's kind of like a newborn baby. Got to have its formula, and then if you continue to do that, your profitability is going to stay low. But as you have the ability to store all the sunlight, so again, more living covers, you're not having to run grow lights, things like that, so they can go outside, they can take the hot or the cold, because the temperatures will be warmer or or cooler, depending on what the circumstance is, time of year. It's going to build the aggregates. So when other people are having to liquid foliar feed, and we just got an 1.5 inch rain 2 days ago, you're like, I'm still good. My bank account's cool because it's moist. You know, you can't draw up something without moisture. Plants aren't going to take it in without being in liquid form unless you're putting it on top. All right. So when you have that ability to continue to grow and not have to spend the manpower to have somebody get run the water, to go put out more fertility, you're winning. So that gives you more time to invest in more cover crops, invest in more property, go out and make more sales. You know, I don't know what exactly it is everybody's getting into, but the less time you're having to hold hands, the more ability and money it frees up for you to be able to go and do more.
So if someone is interested in learning more about this, they can go to the Natural Resource Conservation Service.
Absolutely. And then if you'll get on the tnacd.org, you're going to find the great gentleman that I follow behind, Mike Hubbs, and he has got tons and tons of videos on there. The guy is very, very smart. You know, he was a great mentor to me, and we met in our travels. You know, I was actually working with a client friend of his that was a client of mine at the time, and he's just got so much wealth of knowledge on there. And if there's any questions you may have, maybe you have a soil test, maybe you just want to call, if you'll get on tnacd.org, my email's on there, my phone number's on there. And if I don't know, I'll tell you I don't know, because not one person knows everything. But I'll point you in the right direction either way. So it's a great resource if you hit a roadblock.
So do some research, get a soils test,
Yep.
Explore different varieties and times a year for
Yep.
different cover crops.
And I strongly encourage when you get a soil test, 6 inches, all right, unless you mark it otherwise. So from the top of the surface down 6 inches. If you don't have a probe, you know, you can use a shovel, 6 inches, you know, inch wide, send them about a pound, okay? At the end of the day, they're probably only going to use a half a cup of that. But we're trying to look at each area, however big of a management practice you are, we want to look at the entirety of it. So with that being said, I want pH, buffer pH, and soil saturated pH, because you don't know what's going to happen with a rain event until you get those soil pHs. Organic matter is important. Base saturation is very important to see what, you know, what's my calcium, magnesium, potassium, sodium makeup, to know which lime to buy. Because you can have a pH, well, is it a high mag pH or is it a high calcium pH? So those are good things that you can get this information. Of course, you can get your NPK. You know, I run a lot of Melic 3. There's Melic 1. You know, based on our soils, those are about the two. Melic 3 is what I really would strongly push. And get minors included. It's a little bit more money, but at the end of the day, you're having to have some extra minors when you're first getting started.
Your minor nutrients.
Minor nutrients, I'm sorry. And again, remember, that's only chemistry, physics. But that'll be enough to get you started and get your plants growing, to get your covers in there, establish a biology base, establish a root base, and start to build soil texture.
Okay. So now we're looking at an area of yard, basically.
Yeah, so we want to go back to where it was probably before he started.
Right.
And what the soil texture was like. I mean, you can tell he had to kind of give that shovel a couple good hooves. Now, granted, this is just grass, and mixture of other things. So this has a lot of worms in it. I mean, you're seeing live biology here, which is great. This is almost like photogenic style. We can just put them all in one spot. But you're seeing that platier structure, okay? And it's tighter. That over there, it just crumbled in my hands. It was cottage cheese. It was like cake batter. Mm-hmm. This is a lot tighter. Granted, it is infiltrated. It is wetter. I was talking about getting down 6 inches. But this is a lot drier. I mean, I can't even hardly mark it with my finger. And that over there, I'd bring it up. So these are just quick indicators that, that the roots are doing their job. I wouldn't doubt or even hesitate to say, because of all the biology he's got going on around here, this is just like the highway to get to the amusement park. So they're coming in, but it again doesn't smell. And I've probably got mud over my face, but that's fine. I just want you to take a minute and to go around and look at where you're at. Take pictures so you can reference these back later.
All right. Well, Jeremiah, thank you so much for your time today. And we're going to have more questions after we finish this video. Thanks.
Excellent. Thanks.